How's everybody doing? What's y'all's problem?
It looks solid again.
Sir?
Where they at? Jimmy Wheaton is on this. Let's go back and read Joshua 6, and then we'll read the one at the bottom that I told you this morning that we would read tonight, which would be 1 Corinthians and chapter 10, verses 6. Well, 6 and 11. We'll just do verse 6 and verse 11. But go ahead and find Joshua chapter 6 again and hold that. Well, let's go ahead and read Joshua 6. Joshua 6, verses 1 through 5. Now Jericho was securely shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out, none came in. In other words, they had surrounded the city of Jericho in such a way that there was no escape, for the folks on the inside. And the Lord said unto Joshua, see, look here, I have given into thy hand Jericho. It's yours. It's a done deal. And the king and all the mighty men, they're all yours. And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go around about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. The 7 priests shall bear before the ark the 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times. Again, note the number 7, which is, again, the Hebrew numerical, the number system. The number 7 is the most complete number of all. Compass the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow with the trumpets. And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast of the ram's horn, you'll hear the sound of the trumpet. All the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people ascend up, every man straight before him. Now in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, in verses 10 and verse 6, and we'll read verse 11, these 2 verses is sort of connected to this, it's connected with any of the stories of the Old Testament, but especially to this incident. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 6. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. But look at verse 11. Now all these things happen unto them for ensamples. That's that word in the King James Version especially, you find that word ensamples. That all these things happen unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our instruction, upon whom the ends of the world are come. The word ensamples here in verse 11 means to strike a blow, leave an impression. Strike a blow, leave an impression. So in other words, stories like Jericho and what happened at Jericho ought to leave an impression. Such an impression. Strike a blow. Make an example of it that you will never forget. So we started this morning talking about the people of Israel and the city of Jericho We reminded everybody this morning that this is not a laughing matter. This is not a Jack and the Beanstalk. This is not an Alice in Wonderland story. This is not a fable. This is a true story because of the walls being excavated a number of years ago. In fact, I think I've got pictures of it in the back of my Bible, that they excavated the walls of Jericho. And they found that the walls failed the way the Bible taught, and it was also burned with a tremendous fire, which you can read in the Bible. But the point that we started out this morning is that the people of Israel, God had called them to go into the land of promise. And before they could go into the land of promise, they had to go through Jericho. I wish I could go through some other way. You know, I wish I could go around Jericho. I wish I could go over Jericho. I don't want to have to fool Jericho. I wish I could become all that I need to be for the Lord without having to fool with my Jericho. It's not that easy. We can't do that. If we have a Jericho, we have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. Or else. I mean, it's just that, it's the truth. We can't go around it. We can't ignore it. It's something that we're going to have to do. So Jericho, for many of us, is something that it's like something real big. It's a city of high walls. It's tremendous walls. And you're not going to be able to get through it. You're not going to be able to get through it without the help of God. And so Jericho's, that's a symbol. That's something that I think that 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verses 6, especially in verse 11, was referring to. What we did this morning, we wanted to share some principles in taking your Jericho. Now, I know what my Jericho is tonight. I know what it is. Some of you may know what it is. And some of you could be wrong. You don't know me as well as you think you know me. And I don't know you as well as I think I know you. In other words, I could stand up here tonight and look at you. I've been around you long enough to sort of, well, maybe your Jericho is this, or your Jericho. That doesn't make any difference. Whatever your Jericho is, it's really not any of my business. It's not my business, but it's your business. And I believe most of us have a Jericho tonight. Doug and I were talking, walking into the church, and we both were on the same line of communication that, you know, Jerichos just seem to just, you know, you don't get rid of one, and that's it. You know, that's the way it is. No, you may have more than one. You may have a half a dozen. You may be a Teddy Ward and have about 23 of them. I'm working on 24 now. You can have a number of them. Jerichos. Jericho is something that is standing in the way. And we have to deal with it. If we want to please God. If we want to be in His will. So we started out with some principles that we found in Joshua. The first thing that Joshua had, a principle that he had in overcoming his Jericho, was found in verse 2. Joshua chapter 6 and verse 2. And the Lord said unto Joshua, see, I have given into thy hand Jericho. It's all yours. It's a done deal. And we use the word conviction. And the word conviction simply means being fully convinced about something. Joshua was fully convinced that God had called him to overtake Jericho. He was convinced of it. I'm convinced tonight I have got to deal with my Jericho. I'm convinced of it. And see, that's the starting point for all of us. You have to be convinced that you deal with your Jerichos. If you're not, then you're just going to spin your wheels like most of us do. Well, Joshua, he knew that it was God's will for him to take Jericho. And that is the starting place. It is the starting place. I am convinced tonight that I am to take my Jericho so that I can continue to move forward as Teddy Ward, as a preacher, and so forth and so forth. I'm convinced of that tonight. I'm sold on it. I know it. I understand it. I can see it. I can almost touch it. So I know what I got to do. Do you know what you've got to do? That's the point. Do you know what you've got to do? I know what I've got to do. So you pray for me, and I'll continue to pray for you. The neat thing is, when a lot of us overcome our Jericos here at Calvary, it blesses Calvary. It just flows through these walls and the halls and all that we do for the Lord here. It's a blessing. There's a second principle that Joshua had when he overcame his Jericho. And you find this in Joshua chapter 1 and verses 1 through 2. And the word is trust. In Joshua chapter 1 and verses 1 through 2, it says, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, came to pass, the Lord spoke unto Joshua, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. Number 2, his second principle that he did in overcoming his Jericho was trust. Look at these verses in Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 2. It jumped out at me. God revealed to Joshua about taking Jericho. He didn't tell him how to do it at this time. You find that on over into chapter 6 when he gave him the pattern. But here, when he told Joshua what he wanted to do, Joshua did not know how it was going to be done. I mean, can you imagine what Joshua thought? A city of high walls, drive chariots on top of that wall. It was that big. People living inside the wall, apartments. It was a huge wall that surrounded that city. And God told Joshua, it's all yours. I want you to take it. But you do not find in these verses at this time how God told him to do it. In Joshua chapter 2, we have the story of the sending of the spies. Joshua sent 2 spies into the city of Jericho. Do you remember how many spies Moses sent? 12. They gave a report of the promised land, came back, gave the report. There were 10 negative, 2 positive. Who were the 2 positive? Joshua and Caleb. 2 yeses, 10 no's. 40 years later, let me show you how smart Joshua was. He sends 2 to spy out the city of Jericho. He knew better than to send that kind of committee that Moses sent back 40 years earlier. Joshua probably told these 2 spies, he probably told them, I want you to listen to me. I want you to look at me. Look at me right now. Listen to me. When you get into Jericho, the question is not if we're going to take it. Because our parents are dead in the wilderness for asking questions like that. We're not going to do it. I want you to go in there and I want you to spy it out. And you come back and you tell me what you find out or found out. That's pretty smart. But I want you to notice, again, God told Joshua not how to do it, but he basically said, I want you to go take it. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I have failed in this before. I've been successful in it, but I've also failed in it. And here it is. If we wait until we have all the answers from God, we're going to miss the blessing of God. Think about that. If we wait until we have all the answers, we're going to miss the blessings of God. Is that true? Yes, it's true. I'm telling you the truth. There's times in your life that God will tell you what to do, but not how to do it. He will lead you to do something. He will call you to do something. He'll lay it all upon your heart, but he won't tell you how to do it. He's looking for you to commit to just that. I hear people say, and I've done it before, God forgive me. And I quote, Lord, when you tell me how it will all work out, I'll do it. How many times have you ever prayed that kind of prayer? I have. Lord, when you tell me how it will all work out, I'll do it. That's not trust. That's not faith. The Bible teaches in Hebrews 11, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Here's what trust means. Listen to this. Burn, this is hard. Trust. Burn every bridge. Have the attitude, I will not retreat, and I will depend on nothing else but the Lord. That is trust. Burn every bridge and have the attitude, I'm not going to retreat. And I'm not going to depend on anything but the Lord. I've had to do that before. When I went to school, especially in New Orleans, I had to burn every bridge. I mean, I had to literally go out on faith. I mean, we were there. And God didn't let me down. I didn't know how we were going to make it in New Orleans. I figured it out on paper, and we were in debt before we left. But I'm telling you the truth. God is my witness. We were much better off in New Orleans financially than we were where we were. God has a way of blessing when you do what he tells you to do. When you have that kind of trust, I will do what you want me to do, even though I don't know what to do. This is the other way of taking your Jericho. Trust, trust, trust. There's a third principle that Joshua had. The word is number 3 would be conflict. I don't like this one. Well, I do, but I don't. Well, I don't. I don't like conflict. I just don't, I don't like it. I'm an easygoing guy. And it takes a lot to get me, well, anyway. Here in Joshua chapter 2, when he sent these 2 spies into Jericho, the story goes that they had the authorities looking for these 2 spies. And they were going to be in trouble. The point here is simply this. It wasn't an easy thing for them to take Jericho. It wasn't an easy thing for the spies to go into the city of Jericho. They had to hide. They had to hide. You know, they had to be careful. I mean, nothing really worked completely 100% easy way, so to speak. There was conflict. And by the way, if you read between the lines in Joshua chapter 2, you can read about conflict. They had conflict in preparing for the city of Jericho. The point here is simply, if you're going to take a Jericho, there's going to be some conflict. You know what conflict means? Here it is. Once we attempt something for God, Count me in. Once we attempt something for God, Satan will line all his demonic powers. Let's go ahead and remind ourselves tonight. Satan hates your guts. He hates me. He hates Calvary. He doesn't want anything good to happen to you. He doesn't want you to be happy, peaceful, content. He wants you to be miserable, down and out, and so forth and so forth. Satan would absolutely kill all of us, kill us, if it were not for the grace of God. Satan cares nothing for us. So, you back up and you repeat. Anytime you make an attempt to overtake your Jericho, you're going to have conflict. I want to close with the most important principle of all problem. And this is what we see here in Joshua chapter 1. Let me read these two verses to you. Verses 10 and 11, Joshua chapter 1. Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the host. Command the people, saying, prepare you food, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan to go to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth to you that possess it. Number 4 is the word commitment. When God told Joshua, you're going to take Jericho, Joshua made a commitment to follow through. By the way, you know that's the problem we have with our younger generation. They can't follow through. They make a commitment, quit. Make a commitment, quit. This word commitment here in this story means to follow it through. Here's basically what it means. I wrote it up. Making a commitment, not knowing the hows, leaving all consequences to God, willing to take risk, do not consider retreat, and by God's grace and power I shall obey him, period. That is commitment. I will do this. You can count on me. You can vouch that I will do it. I'm going to do this. The word commitment is missing today in the Christian life, especially in church. People are just not committed like they're used to. Easy in and easy out. But I'm going to share this thought with you before I let you go. If I want to do my Jericho, I have to be committed to it. I can't quit. I can't give it up. I've got to do this. It's a commitment. Come what may, I will do this. It's a commitment. You can count on me. It's a commitment. It's not going to be easy, but it's a commitment. That's how you take your Jericho. You have a bad day, well, just go on to bed, tomorrow will be a better day. And usually it is. You just keep going and you keep going. You know what you've got to do about your Jericho. You must conquer your Jericho. During this prayer time, I want you to just simply think about where you are today or tonight in your walk with the Lord. And I simply want you to think about your Jericho. Father, you know what mine is. And Lord, I pray that you'll help me. Doesn't matter how young we are, doesn't matter how old we get. As long as we have life and breath in these lungs, we are to serve you. We are to be committed to you. Lord, I pray that you'll help each one that's here tonight. There's no doubt that most of us that are here tonight, we have a Jericho. We have something that is standing between you and us, you and me, keeping me from being what I should be. So God, just help us as we leave this place to not forget it for what we've heard, that we'll go home and face this week with an attitude, with a commitment that we want to overtake our own personal Jericho. Thank you for the story that you've given us in your word, that we can be encouraged tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Let's stand together.